Hey, campfire crew. Let's get it on.
Counselor! Come out wherever you are.
Creep at the Gym, submitted by Carolyn. I used to think of the gym as kind of my sanctuary. At 35, with 3 kids under the age of 10 and a career as a copywriter that demanded every ounce of my mental energy, those 60 minutes at the gym were the only time my body belonged solely to me. My husband, Nick, he's a saint. He'd take over the morning chaos with the girls so I could sweat out the stress. But now every time I close my eyes, I'm back there, and I can feel the weight of eyes that aren't looking at my form, but through it. It started with the bumps. I first noticed him near the squat racks, this guy that looked to be in his mid-20s with a lean and hungry look of someone who's spent more time staring at others than lifting. I'd be mid-set and he'd suddenly be right there, his shoulder brushing mine as he reached for a weight he didn't need. "Oh, sorry, Carolyn," he'd say, a lopsided grin stretching across his face. I never told him my name. I assumed he'd seen it on my water bottle or maybe overheard me talking to a trainer. But being a mother has conditioned me to be polite to a fault. I just offer a tight smile and move to a different machine. But he always was there no matter where I went. If I went to the cardio deck, he was on a treadmill behind me. If I went to the stretching mats, there he was, 5 feet away. Everything about him just felt heavy and wrong. One day I was watching some animal show my kid was watching about the savannah, and something struck me about how the cheetahs were stalking the gazelles. That's exactly how I felt, like a gazelle being watched from the tall grass whenever I went to the gym. Then the messages started. I don't know how he got my number, maybe the sign-in sheet at the front desk, and hell, maybe he followed me to my car and ran my plates. I have no idea. But the first text came at around 11 p.m. one night while Nick and I were watching a movie. "That blue spandex really shows how much work you put in, Carolyn. I can see every muscle twitch in your tight ass when you squat. I wonder if you'd shake like that for me." I felt sick. I felt violated in my own living room. I blocked the number immediately. My hands were shaking so hard I remember I nearly dropped the phone. Nick asked if I was okay, and I said yeah. I didn't tell him anything that night. I didn't want to ruin our peace. But the next day, another number texted. Blocking me is a game, isn't it? I like games. I bet you taste like the sweat on your collarbone. I want to feel you struggle under me. That one I showed to Nick. He's a good guy in the truest sense, protective and calm, but I saw the primal flash of rage in his eyes when he read the words. Nick is a big dude, a former rugby player. He is the gentlest of men with me, our kids, and his nieces and nephews. But he's the same guy that wrapped duct tape around his head when his ear got pulled off during a game so he could keep playing. That's the kind of guy Nick is. From that day on, Nick started coming to the gym with me. He worked out alongside me, and I'm sure half of it was him wanting to protect me, and the other half was him wanting to break in two whoever was texting me. The guy, I eventually found out his name was Tyler, didn't stop coming. He'd just watch us from across the room, this weird blank expression on his face. Every once in a while he would tap on his phone screen while looking directly at me. We couldn't prove anything, but I'm 100% sure he was taking videos and photos of me. Nick said he was going to go have a word with him, but I said not to because we couldn't be sure at the moment he was behind all of this. That night I heard my phone buzz on my nightstand at 2 a.m., and I knew what it was without looking. More descriptions of whoever this was wanted to do to me. More threats disguised as desires, but strangely, no mention of my husband. The true terror escalated on a Tuesday. I'd stayed home from the gym that morning because our youngest had a fever. I was working from home and my neighbor watched my kiddo for a few minutes as I made a quick run to the pharmacy. But when I pulled into our driveway on my way back, my iPhone chirped. A notification appeared that I'd never seen before. AirTag found moving with you. I I stared at the screen, and my heart started hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I didn't own an AirTag. Nobody in my family owned an AirTag. I checked our diaper bag, my purse, the kids' backpacks that were still in the car. Nothing. I tried to dismiss it as a glitch. Maybe it was some neighbor's tag picking up my signal. But that night, I'd planned to meet my sister for dinner, a rare break to keep me from losing my mind. As I drove to meet her, the notification popped up again. And then a faint, rhythmic chirping started coming from outside my truck. I pulled over into a brightly lit gas station, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I walked around my Tahoe, and I knelt by the rear passenger side. I could hear the sound loud from there, so I reached my hand into the wheel well, and my fingers brushed against something small and plastic, adhered with a thick glob of some kind of putty. I pulled it out, and it was a small disc. I called the cops immediately. They arrived about 15 minutes later, and I was sitting in the driver's seat with the doors locked, sobbing my brains out. The officers were kind, but their clinical tone did little to soothe me. They took the tag and said they could track the registered owner through the serial number. "We'll do some homework, Mrs. Blank. Don't worry," they said. But I was worried. Whoever put that there had been at my house. They knew where my children slept. They knew where I worked. They knew the route I took to my sister's. They were in my life, like some kind of ghost in the machine. 2 days later, a detective called me. He said, "We found him. It's some guy named Tyler," and then they told me how they went to his apartment to accost him, as they put it. When they confronted this guy in his parking lot, Tyler didn't run. They said he didn't even look guilty. They said he even laughed. He told the officers it was a prank, a joke to tease me with the beeping. He told them we were friends from the gym, and he acted like a misunderstood kid despite being a man in his mid-20s. As the officers were walking back to their cruiser, one of them, an older sergeant with an instinct for the dark side of humanity, looked into the back of Tyler's car that they'd been standing by. On the floorboard sat a coil of heavy-duty climbing rope and 2 rolls of silver duct tape. The police officer turned back to him and said, "You into rock climbing, Tyler?" Tyler said no, and the officer said his eyes were suddenly devoid of the Joker persona. "Any reason you drive around with rope and duct tape in your car?" And Tyler replied, "Oh, that's just for work." The sergeant told me later that the hair on the back of his neck stood up. There weren't any tools in the car. There weren't any work clothes, just the rope and the tape. But without a direct threat of violence or a crime in progress, their hands were tied. They issued a formal warning and told him that he'd be arrested if he breathed in my direction, and then they left. They called it a deterrent, but to me, it felt like a countdown. And by the way, Tyler was lying. Turns out he was a bartender or DJ or something like that at a club downtown. But at any rate, life changed overnight. Nick spent $4,000 on a top-of-the-line security system for our house, cameras at every angle, motion-activated floodlights that turn our yard into a stage every time a stray cat wanders by. I quit that gym and joined a women's-only facility 20 minutes away. But even there, I spend half my workout looking at the door. My place of work was awesome. After I told them what I was going through, they issued me a high-security pass for the underground parking, which was also gated and monitored by a guard. I should feel safe, everybody, but I don't. I still feel like a hunted animal. Every time a car lingers too long behind mine at a red light, my grip tightens on the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. Every time my phone pings with a notification, I jump a little bit. And I check the wheel wells of my Tahoe every single time before I put my children inside it. When I'm home, I check the locks on the doors and windows like 3 times every night. I find myself staring at the security monitor in our kitchen, watching the empty driveway, waiting for a shadow that I don't think should be there. Nick tells me that the punk is out of our lives and that the police scared him off. But I remember the look in Tyler's eyes in the gym, the way he looked at me like I was an object. I know it was in that car, rope and tape. He wasn't planning a joke. He was planning a disappearance. The worst part isn't the fear of what he might do to me, it's the fear for my girls. They ask me constantly why Mommy is always looking out the window. They ask why we can't play in the front yard anymore. I mean, how do I tell them that a monster from the gym decided he liked the way I looked in blue spandex? How do I tell them that even with all the locks and cameras, I still feel his eyes on me? Sometimes I feel the world is no longer a place of possibilities. It feels more like a landscape of threats. I'm 35, a mother, a wife, a professional. But when the sun goes down and the house grows quiet, I'm just Carolyn, the woman who found a tracker on her truck, and who knows with certainty that Tyler is still out there somewhere, just out of my sight. Sorry for the War and Peace novel I wrote here, but thanks for reading this if you do. Working the Drive-Thru, submitted by St. Alex the Lowly. I was 19 when I took a night shift job at a fast food place off a major highway in my town. It was the kind of place that stayed open late enough to catch drunks, truckers, and people who didn't want to go home yet, even though they probably should have. I worked the drive-thru most nights because I was fast on the headset and didn't mind the repetition. It was usually the same things over and over and over. And after a while, you stop really hearing people. The orders just blur together into numbers and combos and drink sizes, and you're just moving on autopilot. At least that's the way it was for me. That's probably why it took me longer than it should have to realize that something was wrong. The first time this guy came through, it was just after midnight. His voice came over through my headset, low and steady, like he was reading something he'd written down. He ordered almost everything on the menu. Burgers, chicken sandwiches, fries, drinks, desserts, and even some weird sandwiches that most people never ordered. The total came out to well over $200, and I remember glancing at my manager, half expecting her to tell me to repeat the order back to make sure it was correct. But she just shrugged and told me to run it. When the guy pulled up to the window, I got my first look at him. He was maybe in his 40s, but pale in that unhealthy way that makes your skin look grayish-greenish, and fluorescent lights didn't help to make it less creepy. His hair was thin and combed back, real slick, and he wore this stiff, almost too clean button-down shirt buttoned all the way to the collar. But what I noticed most was his expression. He wasn't smiling, he wasn't annoyed, he wasn't anything. He just looked vacant, empty, like he was waiting for something that hadn't happened yet. He handed me a thick roll of cash, already counted out. No hesitation, no small talk. I told him to pull forward to the waiting spot while we prepared everything because of the size of the order. He just nodded once, very slowly, and drove off. By the time the kitchen had everything bagged and ready, his car was nowhere to be found. We thought maybe he just got impatient and pissed off and left. I mean, that does happen. But he never came back. The second night, he was back. Same time, same monotone voice, same gigantic order. This time I paid closer attention, feeling that this was strange and not right. And again he listed item after item in this weird, calm, rehearsed tone. When he got to the window, it was exactly the same. Same clothes, same blank expression on his face, and the same money. I even tried to joke with him, asking if he was feeding an army of people. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, and I swear it felt like he was looking through me rather than at me. Then he said very quietly and very creepily, "They don't eat right away." I laughed out loud, thinking maybe that I'd misheard him, but he'd already turned his head forward again. When I handed him his receipt and told him to pull up again, he nodded the same slow way he had the last time and drove off. And again, he was gone before the food was ready. This went on for almost a week, you guys. Every night, the same thing. The same gigantic order. The same disappearing act. My coworkers started joking about it, calling him the ghost customer, but none of them worked the headset like I did. None of them heard the way he spoke in that creepy monotone, like he was following some script that he'd written down. But by the fifth night, it stopped feeling like a joke. It felt deliberate, like he was planning something. I can't describe the feeling. I really don't know how to put it into words. It was just creepy as hell. On the last night, he came through later than usual, closer to when I was wrapping up my shift. His voice sounded different somehow, quieter, like he was farther away even though the speaker was clear. He ordered everything, but when he finished, there was a long pause before he said, "You'll be heading home soon." I froze for a second, but for God's sake, I don't know why I said what I said. "Yeah, I'm off in about 20 minutes. There was a long pause, and all he said was, "Good." When he got to the window, he didn't look at me at all. He kept his eyes fixed straight ahead as he handed me the money. His hand brushed mine this time, and it was ice cold. Not cold from the night air, but like there was no warmth in this guy at all. I tried to ignore it and just told him to pull forward, and then watched him drive off into the darkness beyond the parking lot lights. He didn't come back. He never did. I ended my shift like usual, was asked to wipe down some surfaces, and run through the dining room to just check on things before the next shift started. I tried to shake the feeling that had settled over me, but it just stuck with me. This odd, eerie feeling. Before I left, my manager asked me to take the trash out back, and I didn't argue. I just wanted the night to end. Beyond the building, there sat the dumpster on the far side of the parking lot. I dragged some bags over, trying not to think about how quiet it was compared to the front of the place. As I lifted the lid of the dumpster, I heard something behind me, a car door closing. I turned around slowly and saw this guy's car parked just beyond the reach of the back lights. I never heard him pull in, and I didn't see any headlights. It was like bang, 1 minute it wasn't there, and the next he was. The driver's side door was open, but the guy was not behind the wheel. I told myself to just go back in, leave the freaking trash out here, and just go inside. But something made me look toward the dumpster again. And that's when I noticed it wasn't empty. Sure, there were bags in there already from the earlier parts of the day, stacked neatly. And I noticed they were stacked way too neatly for random trash, and not all of the bags were ours. Then I saw one of them shift. I stumbled back for a second, and that's when I heard the guy's voice. Not through a speaker this time, but right behind me, close enough that I felt his breath against the back of my head. "They eat when it's quiet." I spun around, but he was already moving, stepping back into the darkness between the building and his car. For a split second, the light caught his face, and his expression was no longer empty. He was smiling wide and unnaturally, like he'd been waiting for this moment all week. The dumpster lid slammed down on its own, with the sound echoing throughout the parking lot, and I heard something hit the metal inside hard enough to make it shake. I didn't stay to see anything else. I just booked it. I left the trash out there, ran back through the door, slammed it shut, and ran up to the front where I saw my manager talking with my coworkers. They were staring at me like I just lost my mind. When we finally worked up the nerve to go back out together, the guy's car was gone. The dumpster was empty. The extra bags that were in there that I saw were gone. There was nothing in there but our trash. For weeks after this, I couldn't stop thinking about that weird guy and his orders, about the way he said they didn't eat right away, and the way that something inside that dumpster had moved like it was waiting for the right time. I kept that job for another year, but nothing like that ever happened again. I gotta admit, I still can't go through a drive-thru late at night without thinking about that guy, if he's at some other fast food place messing with somebody else. But not to be sounding like I don't have any mercy or sympathy, at least it's not my problem anymore. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like me to narrate, email it to unclejosh.truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you're catching this on YouTube and you like what you heard and saw, why not give the video a thumbs up, share it with a friend, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you thought of the stories. It's all free and it all helps out with the algorithms, so I appreciate it. Follow me on social media, and if you'd like to take your support a step further, find a link to my Patreon page in the description, and consider getting some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. A link to my TeePublic storefront is also in the description. Everyone, be excellent to each other, and until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything: a ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.